number of things wrapped up so that I can do so. Number of things wrapped up so that I can do so.
My mail. Okay, we're still, I know Ed, Larry is not going to be here today.
Oh.
And there's George. So, okay, let me.
Guess what? We're not at the fire station.
No? You're
I
right.
put big boy pants and everything on.
Oh, well, you look very handsome, let me say.
Thanks.
Okay.
Let's just say that to all the fellas.
Yeah. Okay, we are on the air. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Boak, Chairman of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. This is a virtual planning board meeting. We're using the Zoom conferencing format. The agenda is out on the town's website. And you can participate by Zoom or by telephone. If you wish to participate through Zoom, the webinar number is 899-9521-6375. You can also dial into a phone, 929-205-6099, and then enter that same webinar number. As always, you can watch us on channel 1301 or stream on YouTube Kennebunkport Television. During the meeting, only planning board and the current participant will be selected by the board to be on screen with audio connected. All other participants will be muted except when the board needs public input. If a public hearing is on the agenda, as item 3 tonight is, the applicant and board members will have discussions, after which I will open the public hearing, at which time anyone who wishes to be heard should raise your hand in Zoom. We'll recognize those people who wish to talk one at a time. If you happen to be using a telephone to connect, you can use raise your hand is *6. And toggle mute is *9. And oh, by the way, if you're watching TV and talking on the telephone, mute the TV while you're doing it, because you'll get awful feedback. Anyway, this is the meeting of the 18th of August. And so let me just go through the attendance. So I'm here. Nina?
Here.
Scott? You're there. I see you. Oh, you look frozen again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ed is here.
Yes.
George and John.
Hello.
Yep.
Okay. So Larry is not going to be here today. So for voting purposes, we will alternate between George and John. Okay, the first item is approval of minutes, and we've had 2 meetings. We have the meeting of August 4th, and then we had the special meeting last Wednesday. So let's start with the meeting of August 4th. So did everybody get a chance to look at those minutes?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so
I'll move to accept them as written.
I'll second.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the roll call again. I'm in favor. Nina?
In favor.
Scott?
Scott Dromkoff,
Okay. Ed?
in favor.
George?
In favor.
Okay. Now, the minutes of our last meeting, which talked about going back to Zoom, was a short set of minutes, but any problems with those?
No.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move to accept them as written.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Very good. So let me go through the roll call, of course. So I'm in favor. Nina?
In favor.
Scott? Connecting to audio.
He's connected, but he's muted.
Say yes. Okay. Well, anyway, Ed?
In favor.
Okay, George?
In favor.
Okay. Very good. So in that
Hey.
case, so we all set?
Yep.
Okay. So the first order of business is item 201-001, Boughton Hotel Corporation, aka Colony Hotel, North Campus, and this is a finding of facts. Now, Nina, did you want to try turning off your video and reading? Otherwise, I will
Yeah.
read it.
I'll start reading. If you have a problem hearing me, please let me know and I'll.
I have a problem hearing you.
You're muted
Oh,
right
okay.
then.
Okay, sorry.
You just went muted.
If,
So let me read these.
if I have a problem with it, if you can't hear, okay? If there's a problem, just raise your hand and I'll cut out and you can do them, okay?
I'm going to, okay, you can try, but you broke up a couple times already. So,
Oh.
Okay. all right, I'm going to read.
Okay. Well, I'm going
Thank
to
you,
start
Nina,
it. All right. Okay. Be my guest.
Okay, I'm going to read these lovely findings that Nina prepared. Okay, Kennebunkport Planning Board, findings of fact and decision, application of Colony Hotel North Campus, Kennebunkport, Maine, to reconstruct three sites and convert them into part of the Colony Hotel campus. Following a site plan review pursuant to the land use ordinance held on October 21st, 2020, review of the revised plans on July 21st, 2021, and public hearing held November 4th, 2020, May 5th, 2021, and August 4th, 2021. Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of facts and conditions and renders the following decisions subject to the conditions enumerated below. Finding of facts are as follows. 1, the applicant is Walsh Engineering Associates, hereafter the applicant, the mailing address of 1 Karen Street Drive, Suite 2A, Westbrook, Maine. Owner is Boughton Hotel Corporation, whose address is 140 Ocean Ave, Kennebunkport, Maine. An email to the Kennebunkport Code Enforcement Officer on April 29th, 2021, Boughton Hotel Corp. has authorized William Walsh of Walsh Engineering Associates to act as his agent in this matter. The entire property under consideration has street addresses of 8 and 12 Colony Road and 128 Ocean Ave, Kennebunkport, Maine. Property is identified as a combination of map 8, block 8, lots 14, 15, and 16 in the municipal tax assessor's map for a total of 3.02 acres. Property is located in the riverfront zone. Portions of the property are resource protection zone and are non-conforming in structures, setbacks, and impervious areas. Existing hotel residence and multi-purpose. The existing uses are hotel, residence, and multi-purpose uses. Proposed use is hotel/restaurant. 8, the owner has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of 5 deeds recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds as Book 1428, pages 10 to 12, Book 1428, pages 12 to 14, Book 1430, page 271, Book 17720, pages 85 to 86, Book 18127, pages 102 to 104. The applicant proposes A, to demolish existing buildings and construct 4 new buildings, some of which will be connected by elevated walkways. B, to utilize 1 standalone building as a marketplace restaurant on the first level for a maximum of 44 people and have hotel rooms on the second level. C, to utilize the 3 connected buildings as a hotel so that together with B above, there will be a total of 47 hotel rooms. D, to construct multiple parking lots serving guests, diners, and staff. E, to provide new utility services, and F, to reconstruct Colony Ave to provide a straighter road with sidewalks and curbing, including removal of some utility poles and providing underground utilities. 10, the applicant proposes to reduce legally non-conforming structure setbacks so that in impervious areas so that A, existing non-conforming buildings are removed and buildings 1A, 1B, 1C are constructed further away from the 75-foot coastal wetland setback that the existing buildings are completely outside the 40-foot setback for a hotel. Building 2 is B. Building 2 will be outside the coastal wetland setback, but is within the 40-foot setback from an adjacent property line. C. All parking lots are outside the 75-foot coastal setback. And D. One new gazebo will be constructed within 15 feet of Fairfield Creek. 11. The total existing impervious area is 60,813 square feet, and the proposed impervious area reduces this to 60,305 square feet. The total existing impervious area within the 75-foot coastal setback is 14,656 square feet, and the proposed impervious area in the setback is reduced to 7,212 square feet. Total existing structural footprint of within the 75-foot coastal setback is 5,676 square feet, and the proposed structural footprint is reduced to 5,235. Total existing volume within the 75-foot coastal setback is 87,391 square cubic feet. Total proposed structure is 111,684 cubic feet, a 27% increase. 14. Applicant proposes to remove several utility poles and incorporate utilities updrive. There will be low-level lighting on the pervious path along Fairfield Creek. 15. Applicant has proposed an acceptable plan for erosion control and stormwater runoff. Stormwater will be directed from the proposed parking lots, the backside of the roof of Building 2, and a portion of the landscaped area behind Buildings 1 and 2 to a focal point biofiltration system at the northwesterly corner of the site, so that 81,750 square feet of impervious area and 128,897 square feet of developed area are treated with biofiltration system. Applicant has provided a plan to prevent erosion and downstream migration of sediment during construction. 18. Applicant has provided traffic assessment report for increased vehicle activity and site distance for the intersection of Colony Ave and Ocean Ave. Site distances for Colony Ave and South Main Street. Applicant has also worked with the town to receive approval for straightening and lowering portions of Colony Ave to improve traffic flow, adding sidewalks and crosswalks on Ocean Ave, and will remove several obstacles to improve visual conditions along Colony Ave. Town and applicant will create a formal approval following approval of this application. 17. Applicant has provided a construction schedule that will have outside work and major construction occurring outside of peak summer hours. Construction and delivery vehicles will not be parked on roadways. Applicant has submitted plans on September 30th, 2020, October 28th, 2020, April 15th, 2021, and June 30th, 2020, including drawings, architectural, and site plans. 19. Applicant has not requested submission waivers and has presented a complete and detailed application. 20. Applicant has not requested performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport land use ordinance. 21. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for Decisions, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would compel denial. A, proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the land use ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable state and federal laws, finding yes. B, the proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles, finding yes. C, the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for safety of occupants and users of the site and will not damage the value or diminish the usability of adjacent properties, finding yes. D, the provision for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development, finding yes. E, the proposed use will not have significant detrimental effect on the use and enjoyment of abutting property, and as well as noise, vibration, and fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other causes, yes. Finding. F, the provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking for the vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety, finding yes. G, the proposed use will not have significant detrimental effect to the value of adjacent properties which could have been avoided by reasonable modifications to the plan, finding yes. H, the design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage in accordance with and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements, finding yes. I, adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for prevention of ground or surface water contamination, finding yes. J, adequate provision has been made to control emission or sedimentation, finding yes. K, adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site, finding yes. L, the proposed water supply meets the findings and demands of the proposed use for fire protection purposes, finding yes. Okay, M, adequate provision has been made for transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials defined by state law, finding not applicable. O, proposed use will not have an adverse impact or significant scenic vistas or significant wildlife habitat, or will have such an habitat that could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plans, finding yes. Note, window screens and other design modifications are present to protect against bird collisions and with windows and doors. O, the proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion, finding yes. P, existing off-site ways and travel facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as effects of that development can be traced with reasonable accuracy, yes. When a proposed development is located in a shoreland or resource protection zones, in addition to the requirements of the Land Use Ordinance Article 10 and townwide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards of specific activities and land uses Article 7, approval of this development will also require that the board make positive findings on, based on information presented that the proposed use, A, will maintain safe and healthful conditions, finding yes. B, will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters, finding yes. C, will adequately provide for disposal of all wastewater, finding yes. D, will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, crow, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat, finding yes. Note, given the property on the proximity to Fairfield Creek, fertilizer and pesticide will be limited on this. Fertilizer and pesticide use will be limited on this property. E, will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters, finding yes. F, will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan, finding not applicable. G, will avoid problems with floodplain development and use, finding yes. H, is in conformance with the performance standards set forth in 5.6 of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, finding yes. 19. Applicant has not requested submission waivers and has presented complete, and I thought I read that part anyway, but applicant has not requested any performance standard waivers from the requirements. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, guidelines for decision, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings.
I think you're on the wrong page there, Tim.
Oh, crap. That's what happens. Sorry, folks.
Shall I take
Let
over?
us try again. Any negative finding by the board, that's why it sounded familiar. Teach me to use double-sided. Anyway, any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. 23, the application is complete otherwise. Conclusion. Article 1010A mandates that the planning board shall approve this application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial. And as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, are pursuant to the Article 1011 and 1012E. 1. Our applicant, pursuant to 1012E, shall notify planning board prior to transfer of rights to construct an approved project. 2. The applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may be issued or before any construction activity may commence. 3, applicants will reduce use of fertilizers and pesticides on the lot. Precautions against bird collisions as described above will be maintained. 4, approval of this application is dependent upon application receiving a valid permit from MDEP prior to construction. A copy of the permit must be filed with Code Enforcement Office within 1 week of receipt. 5, because of the increased traffic generated by the area of Colony Ave, Arlington Ave, and South Main Street, by nature of this, the population increases when the hotel and marketplace is operation. The board recommends that applicant work with the town to improve the intersection and make it safer for all. 6, the applicant shall comply with all the terms and conditions of the town of Kennebunkport ordinances dated August 18th, 2011, Kennebunkport Planning Board. And that's it.
Well done.
Yes, and I'm going to have a little water, pardon me. Okay. So, do I have a motion on that?
Make a motion to approve it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go through the names again here, wherever I wrote them down in order. Okay, so I'm in favor. We're approving the findings, and that anyway. So I'm in favor. Nina,
In favor.
Scott,
In favor.
Ed,
In favor?
John.
In favor.
Okay, so everybody can go down to tomorrow or Friday and introduce themselves to Nadia and sign this document. That would be great.
Did you include George?
I did not that time. No, I'm alternating George and John on 5 votes.
Thank you for looking out for me, Nina.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Normally I forget both of them.
Didn't want
Why they
you
call it
to
alternate?
Yes. Okay, the next item is item 210702, Joseph A. Rizzo, and it's a preliminary site plan review, initial review of a site plan. I don't know why it's called preliminary, but anyway, it's a site plan review. It's the initial review of same. So is Mr. Rizzo or his representative around to be brought forward?
I believe Joe is representing himself, but they'll let him speak.
If
to
somebody
that.
else, he can say so.
I'm representing myself.
So no, the answer is no.
There we go. Hello.
Hello. Okay, so Mr. Rizzo, you want to make your presentation, and then we'll all go through and look at the thing for completeness. But
Okay.
can you bring it up on your computer and share the screen?
Yeah, give me a moment, please. The share screen is blocked. Hold on, here we go.
There. Okay. There we go.
All right, can you see it?
Yes.
All right, great. So this is approximately just shy of a 27-acre parcel that I purchased off some family members. And there's an existing ROW with an existing road on it. And I'm looking to extend that road to access this parcel that I purchased. Let's see. And the easiest way to do this is probably just look at the plan.
Yes.
So here are all the parcels. The one outlined is the one I purchased. And then the ROW is here on this parcel, which is attached to Beechwood.
Okay.
And then this is a survey of that parcel that's between Beechwood and the land that I've purchased. This is currently owned by the Dance. And on this parcel is a 50-foot right-of-way that has granted access for my parcel, for the Dance, and for this lot here, which is currently owned by Brad Heaven. And the existing drive, if you look here, you can see it's been dashed out. So there's an existing gravel drive here. And I failed to include the photos in my application of the existing road, but I did get some photos, and I will show those to you now.
Okay.
So this is the approach on Beechwood, heading towards the dump.
Okay, I don't see the picture. I'm seeing your.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can change this. Do you see it now?
No, no, just
No?
see the same picture you had.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can modify this.
There we
How
go.
about now?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so this is the approach on Beechwood heading towards the dump. This is the existing gravel drive. This is a new house just built by the dance. Picture of the gravel drive from across the street on Beechwood.
Oh,
So this is just in front of the dance house. There's their driveway right here. This is the driveway going to Brad Heaven's house. And this location here is where we're looking to extend this road over some wetland to access the lot here and have a hammerhead just inside this tree line. Bear with me, my computer is freezing up a little bit. Here's the picture showing the driveway to Brad's house. And the close-up of the area that we're going to be putting the extension in, hopefully. And here is the drawing that Jason from ARC has drawn up for me. Essentially proposing widening of the existing road, including adding an additional culvert here, following the existing road, and then once we get to that wetland, straightening it out into centering it into the ROW. And he's provided some details for what this culvert would look like crossing the wetland, and then the hammerhead here. And then additionally, I was hoping to split off one lot here, which is outlined, just shy of 60,000 square feet, for either a potential sale or gift to a family member.
and what happens to the rest of the lot?
So the rest of the lot, well, I'm going to retain ownership on.
But you're not going to do anything with it right now, then?
Not at the moment, no.
But a lot of wetland, it looks like.
There is an extensive amount of wetland, actually. I mean, a lot of fingers through here, and then more or less this whole portion is wetland. I can pull up the boundary survey, which is not showing it very well on my computer, but you should have a paper copy showing where those wetlands are in this boundary survey.
Yeah.
And here are some of the details for the grade for the road from Jason. With some additional details for crossing the wetland and the culvert. And working with Jason and Jim Logan and also the MDEP, it was determined that we're not affecting more than 4,000 square feet of wetland while we cross this area right here. So we'll be exempt from the Tier 1 permit, and if we're allowed to build, we would just have to apply with the ACOE, the Army Corps of Engineers. And additionally, I have spoken with the Dans. I have not had an opportunity to meet up with Brad Heaven yet, but I believe the Dans have spoken with them. And so far, we have an informal agreement that we're all pretty much on the same page about how we're going to maintain this road and split up the responsibilities for maintaining it. But I did provide just a rough framework for some paperwork on how we would create our association. The initial couple of meetings I've had with the neighbors, they have discussed potentially wanting to do something a little less formal. But I said, I'm willing to do whatever they'd like to do or what the town would potentially suggest they'd like us to see for an association for the road. So everyone seems to be on the same page and amicable and willing to work it out per the town's recommendation.
Okay.
And of course, we have the abutters list. And a memo here from Jason at ARC, just kind of outlining the wetland work that we have done and the determination from MDEP, what we need to do to make sure that we're in compliance with that. And again, just to show you this, so this is that wetland that we're crossing right here. And that's where it's less than 4,000 square feet, about 3,900 square feet to cross through here to get to the upland just inside this tree line. Okay, questions, concerns?
Okay, I guess let me just ask a couple here. So you're basically, what you're doing is creating a smaller lot out of a dry area of your whole lot, and then leaving the rest for future.
Correct.
So it's really just a chopping one thing in half. So this is not a subdivision, is what I'm saying. Is that correct, Werner?
That's correct. So this review, the reason why this is in front of the planning board is this is that extension of a private road that's going to that services 3 or more parcels, and so that's why it's in front of you for review. But you are correct. This is not the subdivision.
Okay, but the road will have to meet private road specs in the land use ordinance. It's got the 50-foot right of way already, so that's good.
Correct. Yep.
So that's a little bit more than its current state.
They currently have 50 feet, along, the current right of way is 50 feet, and then the extension that extends onto the subject parcel is also, the same dimension. It's at 50 feet.
Right, but is the road itself meet town's private road standard?
Yeah. So, Joe, if you want to bring up the, cross section.
Oh, the cross section. Okay. So the dash is the existing grade, and then this line here is the proposed grade.
Yep. And so what you have here, looking at the drawing, it calls out 24 foot wide gravel drive, and there's plenty of room there in terms of his room for his side slopes, as well as shoulders.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I understand pretty well. Let's go around the board. Nina, do you have any questions on this?
What's the total length of this road?
That's a good question.
I don't think you included that anywhere.
Let's see if it's on this drawing. I believe this is a 1-inch grid, but hold on, let me just do my own takeoff real quick.
1 inch is 20 feet, right?
I believe so.
That's what it says in the lower left corner.
It looks like, yeah, it looks like that's a 1-inch grid. So overall, including the hammerhead, it's approximately 550 feet.
Okay. All right. We don't need, Warner, we don't need approval from the fire marshal on the hammerhead. Is it a standard sort of thing?
Yeah, this is a pretty
Did you get that?
standard. Yeah, yes, I did. No, I think certainly I will pass the information along to Jay. But this is a standard design. That we've seen before and that's been approved before.
Okay.
I did notice that the application
The
page,
only other comment that I have is that the application page is incomplete on yours too.
yeah,
Yeah, there was a printing error on that. I apologize for that. The correct form is online.
That's right. We have the correct digital version of that.
Okay. And
Okay.
the partial shoreline, the partial shoreland there's no shoreland zone.
Nina, you kind of broke up a little bit, so I don't think anyone heard
the
your
question is where is the shoreland that you have listed as, I assume that's supposed to say partial.
That's correct. Yep. So approximately where my cursor is right now, there is Tyler Brook
Ah, okay.
right here. And then that banks back towards this way to a swamp that goes up behind the dump. And then it's also on the corner of this land here.
So it really has nothing to do with where you're building.
Correct.
Or particularly that the new lot.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, Scott, any questions?
Nope, I'm fine.
Okay, Ed?
I was just curious if you intend to bring any utilities up as alongside the road.
Yes. So currently, before I move on to the picture, I'll show you on this plan here.
Okay.
So more or less right about here is a pole. And that's where Brad Heaven's driveway turns off to the right.
Yep.
And you can see right there. So utilities are brought up to this point. And then, yes, I do want to extend the utilities into there. We haven't made a determination if we're going to go underground from this pole or put another pole in there and then proceed with underground to the building lot.
And water and sewer, are those, your intent, would it be those would be private, septic and well?
That is correct.
And fire suppression then?
I don't believe that's required in this zone.
No, not applicable for this application.
It would be for the house.
No, you only wind up dealing with that in the context of a subdivision application. Is whenever we're dealing with the 13D requirements, that only comes forward in a subdivision application, not for this type of app.
Okay, but when you see the in the future, somebody's going to build a house on that new lot.
Correct.
When you get, and that goes to you, I realize it doesn't come to us, but would that have to have fire suppression? Or would that
No.
be? Oh,
No, so so currently, in the main uniform building code, fire suppression is not a requirement for single family homes. We have, within our subdivision regulations, we have that as an option. So whenever you're looking at a subdivision application, fire suppression is handled either through hydrants, fire ponds, or 13D systems. The last couple applications we've looked at have either been 13Ds or hydrants because there's a public water supply. So since this doesn't go through a subdivision application, a suppression, it's not a requirement for the homes here to have 13Ds. Obviously, we would encourage property owners to do that, but it's not a requirement.
As a practical matter, not per the regulations, Warner, what do people do to protect their home? What would the fire chief look for here to say this was a safe home, though?
Well, primarily, the chief would be looking at this for access for truck access.
So he would bring water.
Correct.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, George, do you have anything? George?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. John? Okay, John, I hear nothing, so.
No, I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, I hearing what everybody said and understanding that printing error has been solved for if we look at this online, then I would ask if everybody is, if someone is willing to make a motion to approve this as complete.
I'll make a motion to approve as complete.
Any second?
I'll make a second, Tom.
Okay, good. Scott seconds it. And so I'm going to go through and take the roll call. So I'm in favor of this. Nina?
In favor.
Scott?
In favor.
Ed?
Yes, in favor.
John? Or no, George. We'll go with George. I alternate.
In favor.
Okay. All right. So I need a case manager for this guy.
Oh, what the heck?
Okay.
No?
So was that an what the heck from George? From
George,
yeah. George, that's right.
George, you beat me to it. Thank goodness.
Okay. Well, super duper. So we will have a public hearing on this on August 1st, on September 1st. So we'll see you then, Mr. Rizzo.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. The next item is, and final item for the evening is item 210406, Ocean Woods Resort, Sebago Techniques Authorized Agent. So I guess I need Steve Doe and Ralph Austin and probably a few other people they'll ask for. Okay, there's Steve. And there's Ralph. Do you have anybody else coming
I
in?
think at this point, Brian Nipp might be out there. Justin may be out there, but I don't know if we need to bring Justin forward at this moment. I think it's just the three of us.
Okay.
That's fine. I think Ralph and I can answer the questions. So thank you for having us again. Since we last met, we've had a site walk, and we've submitted 2 more documents for the board that they've asked for. The last one was from Ralph Austin, where he addressed some quite a few of the letters that were sent in from abutters and concerned people in the Goose Rocks area. And then on July 30th, I had submitted a letter addressing essentially 3 items that the board had asked us to respond to. One of those was number of restaurant seats, which Ralph provided a memo on. You wanted some clarification on the hotel units and the bed count, and so we have an analysis prepared on that. And then lastly, I provided a response to Robert and Ellen Emmons' letter, which them being the direct butter had quite a few comments and questions on the plan. So I provided a response to that. That's really essentially what I'm presenting at this point. I think the board's already seen the plans, and I don't really have anything else to add, and be happy to answer any questions you have on what we submitted.
Okay. I believe when we talked last, the whatever was called a kitchenette in some of the units was really not a kitchenette. It was really just a refrigerator and a sink. And I guess you guys were going to clarify exactly what that was and what that wasn't. So I'm not sure I've ever actually seen the official clarification on that.
I can talk to that briefly, and then Brian can add some more detail, but there are no kitchenettes. The only things that'll be in the units will be a refrigerator, sort of an under the counter type refrigerator. Is that correct, Brian? Or Steve?
Yeah, Brian's muted. I'm going to kind of defer to Brian, but I believe that's right.
Yeah, the millwork package is pretty simple in there. So it would just contain a sink and an under-counter refrigerator.
And then the plugs would be limited, what they could be plugged in. I mean, you couldn't go bringing in hot plates and shit.
Yeah, it's not the intent to utilize any of that. So outlets would be installed per code adjacent to the sink, and that's really all that was planned for there.
So at most you'd have a hotel coffee maker or something.
Yeah.
Hotel room coffee maker.
I don't think there's a set plan for what's going to be on the countertop. I would imagine it would be open on top of the counter.
All right. Now, I need, this is more for Ralph, I guess. I need to bring Amy up to speed and ask a few questions of Amy so that we get a clean answer of that. And right. So whatever I have a short memo which basically asks questions related to a letter from Richard Driver, as well as just general comments in terms of expansion of youth, which you've already dealt with. But I'm going to provide this. Actually, I provided a final copy of this this memo to Werner before this meeting, so he can get that out to you and to Amy.
Correct. Yeah.
So.
No, I look forward to her analysis and discussion. So. Good.
Okay. So I guess I don't have anything new to ask then. So let me just see.
I just have one question that I always like to ask of the applicant. So what I'm understanding is that the board is asking town attorney Amy Chow to review a list of questions that the board has. And as such, I'd like to also just request, that the applicant deposit with the town $2,500 in escrow for the covering of those legal fees.
Certainly.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess that being said, I'm all set. Nina, do you have anything more at this point?
No, my questions revolve around non-conforming uses, and I'm going to wait for Amy before I, look at any more details of the application. I think those are the really resounding questions here.
Okay. Ed, since you're the case manager.
The only question I have is to Steve, I think, on how do you, what's your thought on handling the specific questions that came in several of the letters? Richard Driver's letter. Let's see. Ann Hand and May Kickness. They talked about Richard Drivers, of course, was focused on use and non-conforming use and the like, and then the others were real on noise concerns and the like. Do you want to handle it as part of the public forum, or do you have any statement to head off those coming at us in the public forum? What's your preference?
Yeah, not at this point. I think we'll hear what their comments are, and then kind of see if there's any common themes that we can respond to, in our next submission. We're also going to be responding to the peer review comments from Acorn.
Yes.
We're formulating all those now, and really wanted to wait till this public hearing piece before we do the any plan changes in case something comes up from the public that triggers, some modification. So,
thank you. Nothing else, Tom.
Oh, okay, good. Then let me just work down to Scott.
Yeah, I await Amy's analysis.
Okay.
Thank
George?
Nothing additional.
John?
Nothing additional.
Okay, so I guess we're ready for part one of the public hearing. Just general purpose questions. We will be opening this public hearing. This is an ongoing process. So at the end of, at some point tonight, we will have a motion to continue the public hearing to the next meeting, because obviously the applicant is going to be submitting more stuff, and we'll be getting stuff in from the town attorney. So this is not the only chance people will have, but the main thing is let's be courteous. I mean, we don't have to worry about applause and yelling like we do in a real public hearing. So that's nice anyway, but just get to the point, ask the question or make the statement. And, if you have a 3-page statement to read, send it to us. Don't read it, please. Or give us a couple highlights and send it. Anyway, I would like to open the public hearing. So, do we have a raised hand? Okay. Heard that name somewhere before.
Alrighty, Richard Driver, Goose Rocks. Mr. Boak, I'm kind of surprised that you're going to conduct the hearing before having input from the town attorney. When you had the hearing on Sandy Pines, actually Amy Chow was asked to be present at a meeting to answer your questions and actually questions from the public publicly. And we're not, apparently you're going to send her some questions that you've come up with, but you're going to conduct a hearing on a non-conforming use without knowing whether this is an expansion of a non-conforming use. Now, I understand Mr. Austin has submitted something. I'm at a disadvantage because whatever he submitted was not posted. So I have no idea what he said. But what I said to you in the memorandum is I'm sure that he will have a legal argument as to why the application should go forward. And I have a legal argument, and actually based on the primary case that Mr. Austin references, Frost versus Lucy, that this application cannot be approved. I mean, if you look at Frost, and I assume all of you have read it, it's not a hard read, it's not very long, but Frost talks about what the law is, and the law is the existing use, the existing buildings are what are protected, not new structures. And what do we have here? We have at least 32 new structures, 30 cottages, a restaurant, and a paved parking lot, which is a structure, doesn't exist now. So it seems pretty clear that the application violates what is a non-conforming use that is grandfathered. Well, the only thing that's grandfathered is the building that's there now and the use of that building, not tearing that building down. I assume all of you have looked at the town ordinance in terms of uses, non-conforming uses. And it's 240-8.1. The purpose of the land use ordinance as regards non-conforming structures and uses says specifically that it is promoting the use of the uses that existed prior to the date of the becoming non-conforming. And when you look at the ordinance, the non-conforming structures, there's paragraph upon paragraph about the change in use, the expansion, or even if there is damage, destruction, or removal of a non-conforming structure. When you get to non-conforming uses, all they really say, all the land use ordinance really says is no expansion. And the applicant is saying, well, it's not expansion because we're having the same square footage. Well, yeah. Square footage expanding over 10.4 acres, whereas right now it is maybe 3 acres that are disturbed, and they're going from 9.3 impervious surface to 19.4, more than doubling the impervious surface on the lot. And I just don't understand why you are going to hear testimony about a use that is clearly not permitted. That they want to repair the building that's there, that's fine. That's got grandfathered, but not what they're proposing. And to waste the time of the residents and your time going over issues such as abandonment and clearly there's an issue about abandonment and enlargement. And I guess one of the issues is resolved, and that is whether it's going to be kitchens or not. But there are so many questions and questions about the disturbance of the property, the drainage, and what have you. Why are you insisting on going forward tonight? Why don't you bring the town attorney into the next meeting and publicly ask questions so that those of us who are objectors can hear the answers? I mean, right now we're at the disadvantage of there are submissions, according to Mr. Doe, submissions that since the last meeting that are not posted.
No, they are. I use the posted versions instead of looking at the printouts, so they're definitely posted.
Mr. Boak, I checked the site about 3:30 this afternoon, and there was no additional information from Mr. Doe, no additional information from Mr. Austin.
Warner, was the memoranda from Mr. Austin posted?
Yeah, so I'm just taking a look at the website here. So what we have on the site, and I'm just going to go and read down through the documents here. We have the peer review from Acorn. We have Ralph Austin Esquire letter that's dated July 14th. Excuse me, I got the wrong button here. Easement deeds, the stormwater management report, Ocean Woods supplemental submission, 6/22/2021, Ocean Woods resort application, and Ocean Woods supplemental submission dated 8/4/2021. I believe that's, those are all the documents that we've been referring to. Please let me know if there's something that has been missed, and we'll obviously make sure that we get that up on the site. I will say just this question has been asked. We don't typically post all of the abutter correspondence on the website. We do have all of that in the file that's held in the code enforcement office, but that is something that you won't necessarily see on the on the website. And again, if there's anything that folks believe is missing, please let me know and we'll check into it.
To Mr. Driver's point about the fact that in other occasions we've had the questions put to the attorney in a public meeting. Do we plan to and can we put the questions that we've just sent to Ralph and to Amy, or will those be posted?
So yes, so I will certainly post those questions. We'll put those up on the site. We haven't posted those just because those, that's a new piece of information that I think
20 minutes before the meeting. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're not that quick. But no, I'll direct staff to post that. Your other question is really a question of process that the board can decide how they want to handle this particular question. From a practical perspective, I don't think it's inappropriate to give Amy the questions ahead of time, to give her opportunity to look at those questions and develop answers. If the board wishes to have Amy present at the next meeting, I can certainly ask that. But I don't know that it's necessarily fair to ask questions just off the cuff without some type of preparation. I don't know that you would get a solid researched answer at that point. So I think having the questions prepared ahead of time, submitted to Amy, giving her the opportunity to work through and develop answers, that's an appropriate process. However, you all can certainly ask, to have her present at the next meeting if you would like me to check into that.
I think one of the things that Mr. Driver might be confused about is it's in the planning board's prerogative to go ahead with a public hearing. But what we have been doing basically is continuing public hearings, especially on Zoom. So back to the first public hearing and any submissions that are made by the applicant. But there will certainly be a chance that the second public hearing, hopefully, if Amy comes back with answers, to address what she says and to discuss that as well. And Amy, I'm not sure that it's really that helpful to have Amy present at the next hearing, although we can do that because basically the questions being asked need to be researched as case law. And when she gives an opinion, she will be basing it on case law, not on basically any facts that are brought up that haven't been brought up already. It might be a good thing for Tom to read the questions that, we've just come up with that are going to the town attorney. And then the abutters and the people of Goose Rocks will have an idea of what we're asking. Are you up for reading more, Tom?
Well,
So may I ask a question of Werner before we go on? Werner, I just didn't hear you say, and maybe I missed it. There's also a memo from Ralph dated July 30 concerning the number of restaurant seats. And there's a letter from Steve also dated July 30, which answers a number of the questions that were asked. And I didn't hear you mention it. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
No, that's a good question. The letter that I have from Ralph here is dated July 14th. So I don't have one shown here that is a July 30th.
The July 30 letter from me is part of Steve Doe's July 30 submission.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. And that is the July 30th is that supplemental submission done by Steve.
Thank you.
That's correct. I do see within that then on looks like page 4, Ralph's July 30th memo.
But it sounds like the memo that I sent out last Friday was not posted.
And what was
August 12th.
What was the date of that one?
August 12th.
No, I do not see an August 12th. So I will look for that one and make sure that gets posted.
I'm not sure I saw that one.
I don't think I saw that either.
Either.
Oh,
It was emailed by the town. It was emailed by the town to the planning board members Friday afternoon.
All right. Well, we'll take a look and certainly make sure everybody has that and make sure we get that posted.
Yeah, I didn't get anything from the town on Friday. So,
Yeah, I received it.
okay. Anyway,
Yep. I'll check through all the correspondence that we have here and resend anything that would have come in from Ralph last Friday.
and get it posted so that.
And get it posted.
Yeah.
Mr. Boak, that's what I was referring to. There was a suggestion that Mr. Austin did submit a response to my memorandum, and that was not posted. And that when I said I was at a disadvantage, that was what I was referring to.
Yes, I think we all are.
Okay, and you know, as to Dr. Perlmutter, in her comment that it is the board's prerogative, I recognize that your prerogative to conduct a hearing or to adjourn the hearing. But it seems to me it would be prudent to wait until you have some determination from the town attorney. Let's suppose her response is, this is not a permitted use of the property. It is clearly an expansion of a non-conforming use. Let's suppose she responds to that. Then what do you do? And why are we then wasting time in terms of a hearing, and we're in the dark as to what she's going to say? And I think I know what she's going to say, and I'm sure Mr. Austin has an opposite view, but there's no division of our different opinions that you can split down the middle. It's either yes or it's no. And I think you should wait to have that answer before you delve into the specifics of this application.
Mr. Driver, this is Ed. I understand your point. I think you will agree that it's the process we've been following that led us to the point where today only we have been able to articulate and form the questions that we're putting to the attorney. Now, you may argue that we should have been faster to do that, and that's your right to feel that way. But I think we have gotten to the point by following the process that we use where we were able to articulate those questions today. And we've just said that we think it's still useful to entertain public opinion, starting with yourself today. We opened the public hearing. We have no plan to close that public hearing today, but rather to continue it. And that we will not be making a final decision on this application without benefit of input from Ms. Chow. So I'm hoping that that's going to satisfy your concern, albeit perhaps not your frustration.
Yeah, our process, because the planning board has no independent funding in this town, so we don't fund the town attorney, and the town would rather not fund the town attorney for something like this. So we have, as Werner did at the beginning of my discussion of this, or at the end of my discussion of this, was to get the buy-in from the applicant that they would cover our attorney costs. So that led me to not be able to issue this memo until now. So that's where we are.
Mr. Boak, would you entertain reading the questions that are going to go to the town attorney?
Certainly, I would, and they'll get. I'm sure that Werner will post them, get them posted tomorrow on the website. And I just love to read stuff, as you well know. From so, okay, the lead in. I'm going to take Zoom off the screen and I'm going to read it off my screen. So let me just do this. I'm probably still on the screen, but I'm going to find the memo. Okay. Questions from Planning Board to Town Attorney dated 18 August 2021. The hotel and restaurant are legally non-conforming uses which were approved as an allowed conditional use by the planning board in January of 1985, at which time the property was in the free enterprise zone. Goose Rock's zone was subsequently expanded to include this property, no longer allowing restaurants or hotels. So, 1, Goose Rock's resident and Richard Driver has written a letter dated August 3rd, 2021, which we need to have evaluated by the town attorney. 2, since the hotel and restaurant have not operated since 2019, it is allowed to resume operation in 22. Is it allowed to resume operation in 2022 under LUO 8.8B, resumption prohibited? Is the letter provided by applicant on August 4th, 2021 submission from Justin Grimes of the Kennebunkport Resort Collection sufficient for this? 3, under LUO 8.8A, expansions of use are not allowed. Is this considered a different use or an expansion of use since A, it takes up much more than twice the overall area, 9.3 to 19.4%. B, changed from one building to 31 separate buildings spread over that area. C, the increase in parking, golf cart, human activity, and structures will be much closer to the abutters' properties. 4, since the building is non-conforming due to a change in the land use ordinance, does the grandfather status still apply when the building is raised and new, significantly different buildings are erected in vastly different in vastly different locations? Does LUO 87F require that the new buildings be designed to conform to the same architectural style, quote, quote. Okay, regarding item 3A above, which was the area expansion. The question relates to whether expanding the area of the land occupied by a non-conforming use is in fact an expansion of the use. Kennebunkport ordinance simply states that the expansion of use is not allowed without being more specific. Other towns have clarified that by adding language to clearly say that land area for that use cannot be enlarged. What follows is an excerpt from the State of Maine Planning Office Training Manual for Code Enforcement Officers, as the language in the other towns' documents resulted from court cases on this topic. So now we have a quote from the Municipal Code Enforcement Officers Training and Certification Manual, Maine State Planning Office Zoning and Land Use Regulations, December 2010, excerpt from Section 4, Paragraph 5, non-conforming structures or uses are those that have been targeted for gradual elimination. Ordinance provisions that allow for continuation of these structures or uses should be strictly interpreted, while provisions limiting non-conforming uses should be literally interpreted. That is, the continued existence of non-conforming structures or uses as they existed at the time of enactment or amendment of the ordinance is guaranteed. However, this guarantee only applies as they initially were. No changes to expand or improve the use or structure are generally allowed by the ordinance. The common allowance for non-conforming structures is to permit their repair and maintenance, but prohibition against enlargement or replacement unless the addition somehow makes the structure less non-conforming. The structure cannot be made more non-conforming. Similarly, non-conforming uses are usually prohibited from expanding in size or changing the nature or purpose or the use to be more non-conforming. And that is the letter that we have put together and are expecting to have Amy help us on.
Okay, so two comments, Mr. Boak. One question and a comment. Are you going to forward my letter to Amy Chow?
Absolutely. That was that was question one. Said, based on letter from Richard Driver, dated August 3rd.
Okay. The question then or comment is, you're going to get a response from Amy Chow, and I'm sure that you're going to have questions about what she says.
Of course.
And I'm sure that Ralph Austin will have questions. The public should be entitled to hear the exchange between the planning board and Amy Chow, the applicant's attorney and Amy Chow, and maybe to even have some comments themselves, the members of the public. So I would encourage you, yes, send her the questions, but two, make sure that she is invited to participate at your next meeting or whatever timing works for her in order to publicly address the issue. I mean, it's not a simple issue, and in some ways the non-conforming use is an esoteric subject, but there are a lot of people in this town, and especially in Goose Rocks, who have an interest in what is going to happen with this this application. And contrary to something Mr. Doe said to you at an earlier meeting, this property, this use can operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months of the year. Maybe not the restaurant, but if you look at Frost versus Lucy, it says it's not seasonal. And Mr. Doe said going 12 months out of the year would be an expansion of a non-conforming use. That's not true. Frost versus Lucy decided.
Oh.
No.
Well, Frost versus Lucy decided that the hotel in South Portland could operate 12 months out of the year. And it would seem to me that applies to this project as well. It's a question of quantity of use versus quality of use. But in any case, what I would ask is that you get her answers and you invite her to participate, and it not be you just exchanging letters with her and Mr. Austin exchanging letters with the town attorney. It needs to be public.
It has to be public. Any exchange that we have with her has to be made public.
Yes, it doesn't have necessarily to be real time, though. I don't think she has to be subject to cross-examination by the public, for example.
Right.
But she certainly should be available to answer your questions, Mr. Francis.
Yes, I agree. And I'm looking forward to that answer.
But his questions, basically, he can't privately send questions to Amy. The way the planning board works, basically, the questions would have to be made public.
Correct.
And as far as cross-examination, I don't think you would have to worry about that. But all of our meetings, planning board members cannot talk to one another or talk to the applicant or talk to consultants without, it being made public. We can't consult with each other behind your backs, basically, by email or anything like that. Any comments that we make on a findings of fact has to be to one person, the writer of it, and the writer of it only. other than that, to discuss an application, it has to be basically something that is public, open to the public, even though it may not be a public hearing. Just like the site walk, it has to be open to the public so that the public can observe.
Okay, Richard, are you done for now? Can we get other comments? Other people talking, please?
Sure. As long as you don't close the public hearing, because
You will not, believe me, we will not close the public hearing. So, okay. Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all. I want to say Richard Driver has so many good points. And I want to say how sad it is that our town does not have independent funding for a town's attorney. These are just reactions to what I've heard. It's not really what I had planned to say, but I do really call into question why it is that our town does not have independent funding for a legal attorney. And I think that's something that our town needs to support in the coming days and months. And so I just wanted to react to that. As a board chair for an international tree reforestation organization and someone who has her eye on wildlands, wetlands, and all that is natural, I have a lot of concerns about what the applicant has called, the word is outflow. I call it overflow. And I know that this application has been brought to our main DEP, but I do want to express my concern that what the applicant has labeled an outflow in 100-year storms really does not provide for or account for storm frequency and intensity due to climate change. I've written a letter about this, and I just want people in our town to realize that we are already facing pollution. We are already facing negative impacts on our shellfish harvesters. And to have a resort, a new, however many buildings with so much impervious surfaces that contribute to the degradation of our own marshlands. It's a concern to me, and I just want to bring that forward. Nina, I want to help you to get a better, I'm a master's of engineer, so I will help you to get a better signal so that your voice can be heard at the level that it needs to be heard. Because I hear you in and out, and I feel that that's something, your voice needs to be heard more clearly, and I want to support that. So anyway, those are the things that I want to bring forward. My concern about the wetlands, the wildlife, the outflow/overflow into our marshlands that are already degraded. And I just don't think we can afford more of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
I just want to clarify, a question that I heard there regarding the town's legal budget. So just to be clear, the town does maintain, a legal budget for its operations. What our process here is that, we don't set aside funds for the review of projects on private property, which is what this is. So it's our standard practice to, require escrow funds to pay for that legal review should the planning board choose to ask for that. But I just want to be clear, the town does have a legal budget for those the items, town business items as appropriate. But these are different circumstances at the planning department. We don't run a separate legal budget for the review of private applications. We require applicants to provide funding for that.
Okay, can we?
Hi there. I just wanted to say, in a similar community in New Jersey where I came from, and in most communities where there's intense development pressures, planning boards do have regular town attorneys, and they are there to analyze and question and inform on a regular basis the planning board. So not everything that gets sold by the applicant is left up to members of the board who are not legal experts. That was one thing. And the second thing is, I didn't see in a public meeting any sense that there was a letter being developed to Amy Chow to raise questions or invite board members to ask Amy legal questions. So the transparency that you guys are offering, just doesn't hold true. The members of the community were not invited to pose similar questions. And tonight you have a letter that, thankfully was raised and was read, but otherwise this was all done in the dark, and it shouldn't be done in the dark. It should be in the public. There should be.
Mr. Hogan?
Yeah.
May I interrupt you?
Well, can I just...
2 weeks ago, we had a meeting which, because of COVID, couldn't be a public, we could not have a room full of people. So they kindly shifted the next meeting to the next regular meeting of this board. What that meant is that an earlier, somewhat different, but virtually the same version of this letter was not read out and handed to Amy Chow and get permission to, and get the escrow money that Werner said. So the reason that it's 2 more weeks than original is because we didn't have a chance to meet on this topic until today.
Right, but apparently out of the public, you asked board members, I've been watching, maybe I missed something, and if so, I apologize. But you've asked members of the board to submit questions to Amy, and that's great, but that should have been done in the public. That's all.
I did not ask them to send questions to Amy. I asked them to send questions to me with no CCs to any other member, because at no time do we have emails that render render us into a public meeting. We always make sure that, even as Nina was saying, when we review the finding of facts after everything is done, we send out the case manager will send out a copy to everybody, but everybody responds only to that one person, so that at no time is there any actual meetings happening. We were all carefully described, told how to work the Freedom of Access Act in Maine. I, for one, took a course in it, and we're trying to be very careful not to do anything as a board that is not in the public. We only can meet every other week. So, you know, they presented this initial presentation was only 4 weeks ago. So we had one meeting in the middle and we didn't meet on this topic. So.
And I might want to add that the reason I asked Tom to read that letter, which hasn't gone yet, is so that there could be, sorry. And I hope you heard me. I noticed that the Board of Selectmen gets closed captioning of everything they say, but we don't seem to. I wish we would have that so that you could hear everything that I say. Oh, it is. Okay, good.
But you need to upgrade your internet over there, Nina.
Believe me, I have tried. I have called in every satellite provider. They will not put cable down to my house. And the only thing I have is a DSL line.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, this is supposed to be a public hearing on a property. And I just want to add parenthetically, when I hear complaints that things are being done in the dark and not in public, that this is in fact a public hearing, that this is what it looks like. And we're here every 2 weeks, we're not on the payroll, and it's always pretty exciting. If we could get back to the property itself, I'd be delighted.
So, Mr. Hogan, do you have something else to say?
No, I thank you for your comments.
Okay. So, have the next person, please.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering, I'm in a butter, if you received my email with the map from the comprehensive plan on the Maine Natural Areas Program, describing the rare plant zone behind us and in a part of their property. Did you receive that?
When did we receive that?
You were supposed to be.
So yes, that email was forwarded on to you all. I believe it came in.
This morning.
I saw it yesterday. Well, I think Robin, what I saw was I believe you had sent it to Lori, who forwarded it to me, and I then forwarded that to for the board. So.
Okay. Well, it's rather short. It's rather short. You'll have to look at the map separately, but can I read what I wrote?
Please do.
Okay. Dear Mr. Boak, I'm in a butter to Ocean Woods Resort and strongly disagree with the proposed expansion and reconfiguration of this project. As a long-term local and professional horticulture person, I know what an unusual and fragile ecosystem we have in this area. I would ask that at the very least you request a complete ecological survey of the flora and fauna before permanently changing the lay of the land and the rare habitat that exists there. Last fall and winter, we had a rufous-sided screech owl on the premises. It was documented by Audubon during the annual bird count. Although not endangered, it is an extremely rare specimen in our area. The amphibians that are all through our adjoining properties include spotted salamanders, red newts, tree frogs, and generous peepers in the pond slated to be filled. I can also say that the flora and fungi that live here are plentiful and unique. There are lady slippers, mayflowers, hen of the woods, wild oyster mushrooms, and I've even found bottled gentian. These are just a few examples of what lives undisturbed in the proposed blast and fill zone. It is unfortunate that I have to request this in a town that touts conservation and wants to become an eco-tourist destination. I have no objection to Ocean Woods being torn down and rebuilt to be more inviting in today's guest requirements, but I find it audacious to destroy and fill wetlands teeming with life, which require a very specific set of environmental conditions to exist. The footprint for these environments continues to shrink as the pace of development in our town and the magnitude of land disturbance increases at an alarming rate. In the ordinance book for the town of Kennebunkport, disturbance of wildlife and neighbors is not allowed. That, coupled with all the increased proposed non-conforming structures in our zone, should give you reason to pause and make sure you know what is at stake. I found this map in the comprehensive plan, and it clearly shows what a unique habitat we have down here. I hope you will consider the consequence of the proposed non-conforming plan. So this is a map, and it shows the rare plant zone of our town. It's in blue. It's attached to your email. And, Ocean Woods, my property, the only places it exists is in Goose Rocks, and it is extremely rare. So to fill and destroy that with 30 cabins when there's ample space at the top of the hill to do the project, I really don't understand why nobody's asked for a real environmental study. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next person.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Wesley Phillips. I live on 21 Buzzies Way, and I'm on a butter to this property. We have, this is what, the third meeting or fourth meeting? And it's the first time that the public's had a chance to say anything. We had the site walk. There's about 36 of us went on the site walk, and we're informed, can't ask any questions. Okay, why the hell are we here? So the guy from Ocean Woods took the planning board, circuited his route around, showed them what he wanted them to see, nothing else. He went by the pond, which he said, that was a man-made pond. And in their plans, they plan on filling in half of that, so they put one of those shacks up there. I walk out there all the time. And I was up there walking the other day, and lo and behold, there's a flag at the end of that pond says wetlands. They never mentioned that. I don't know how they can fill that pond in with a flag that says wetlands. They may have taken that flag up by now, but I've taken a picture of it, so I have the record of it. I've always enjoyed that little pond has peepers in the springtime, and it's just wonderful to hear them in the spring. During the site walk, we went down into wetlands, and I don't know if they plan on, I didn't hear whether they plan on filling some of that in or not. I don't know. But with board and a whole bunch of people walked down, there's a path, we walked down, and we all trod over this beautiful big patch of mayflowers. Nobody knew what the hell they were. It's just, like Robin just said, there's a lot of wildlife and flora and fauna that's really going to be destroyed. And my property, I had 3 deer out here yesterday, and they come across Route 9 from between the Emmons farm, Clock Farm, and the fire station. And they come down through to get to the salt marsh, because animals like to have salt hay to eat. So we have owls, sowed owl up there a year or 2 ago. I got tagged by a screech owl twice last fall. Hawks, eagles, deer. So, as Robin said, this is a unique piece of property. And this plan put by Ocean Resorts is just simply an expansion of use, pure and simple. And most of the questions I hear from the planning board don't have anything to do with that. It's just, well, let's see, we're going to have a kitchenette or not. It's just, I really appreciate what Richard Driver did. He put a little real meat into the whole conversation. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Next person. Mr. Stafford?
Yeah, hello. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I loved everything Mr. Driver had to say tonight because that was what I understood the situation to be with the whether it's conforming or not, and what's allowed. And based on that, I honestly don't know why this is even being discussed at this point. But what I would like to add to that is looking at the planning board goals on the website. It says the planning board seeks to be mindful of the best interest of the entire community, present and future, and to support the town's comprehensive plan and the state's goals for natural resource management, land use, and development established by the legislature. So based on that alone, the question that I have is, I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to answer it as well, but I'd also like you to respond to it after. What is the long-term benefit that this resort will be to the Kennebunkport residents? Will this project help preserve or improve the quality of life for residents that is already being harmed by overcrowding? And the answer is absolutely not. What it will bring is a loss of wildlife habitat, a loss of wetlands, more heavy truck traffic servicing the resort, more traffic congestion on Dyke Road and Kings Highway, as well as the side roads and Wildwood and back, because the shuttles that come in now from Hidden Pond and other parts of the collection and delivery trucks frequently use those roads. And an interesting thing about those shuttles is, they have New Jersey number plates on them. So, this is a bit of an aside, but I find it particularly odd that if these enterprises are really trying to support and benefit this community, that they're using vehicles that are registered out of state. But anyway, like I said, that's an aside, but it's going to cause more crowding on the beach. And with climate change being such a big issue, we know the amount of space we have at high tide at Goose Rocks right now is far diminished from what it used to be. And it's only going to get worse. At Gooch's Beach, there is no dry sand at high tide anymore. So anybody visiting that area that wants to come to a beach at high tide is going to have to come here. So Ocean Woods will be a high-end luxury resort catering to wealthy people from out of town at the expense of Kennebunkport residents. And the profits will also go out of town, most likely, following the Kennebunk Resort Collection, whose 9 properties are now owned by a New York investment company. So again, my question to the board is, what is the benefit for the residents of Kennebunkport of having this place where, units are going to go for, if they follow Hidden Pond, starting at close to $1,000 and going over $2,000 a night? What is the benefit to us? That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next person. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jerry Fitzgerald, and I live at Goose Rocks. And my question for the board or Warner is, if the state approves the applicant's request to fill wetlands, is the town obligated then to allow them to fill wetlands? Or is the town permitted to have a higher standard for the preservation of open space and storm runoff and all those other issues?
Werner, do you want to field that one?
Sure. No. So I want to say it's been typical of the board's practice that, projects that have been approved by the Maine DEP regarding stream crossings, wetland impacts, things of that nature, that the board has typically accepted those as part of their project review. But the other question is, does the board, can the board, look at that and apply, a higher standard? So typically it's much easier. Well, it's much easier if you have that standard in your ordinance. And I think what we're referring to would be a different performance standard. Then at that point, property owner and applicant, would have the ability to design a project based on, a documented performance standard. So there, the board does have, certainly does have leeway within its findings, where it goes through a process, of answering the questions that they typically do on all of their findings. And so, as we hear on every set of findings, the board has to make positive findings in that regard. So there is discretion on the part of the board when they make those statements.
But ultimately, it comes down to, we enforce the land use ordinance. That's our job. And if, folks would like us to enforce something beyond the land use ordinance, then they should be getting to a town meeting and passing a new and improved changes to the land use ordinance that we will happily be the ones that enforce. Unfortunately, we get times that we have to approve stuff when we maybe wouldn't want to, but reality is we've got a land use ordinance that the town put together, and has changed. It's a living document. It's been changed several times, but we have to live with it.
The town has some standards basically, but they're very ambiguous in the land use ordinance. And I addressed this question with an attorney not too long ago when she said that, the Maine MDEP has approved this. Should you just go along with it? And I said, basically, under our performance questions, basically our standards on 1010A, there are questions about scenic vistas and will it affect wildlife, will the application affect wildlife and natural habitats? And to me and to many board members, I believe, this means that we do not have to accept MDEP. We can go beyond and say this is a special circumstance and make our own decision. But it would be much easier, like Werner says, if you, for example, crafted some specific performance standards that were higher than MDEPs for protection of wildlife and for protection of exotic plants in special places such as estuaries, and brought them before, we've talked about this, the Growth Planning Committee and the Planning Board, so that we can bring them before the Board of Selectmen, and then they can be put forth to the town for a vote of whether they want to add these to the land use ordinance.
Great question.
And that would be the way it happens.
Thank you, Nina. That's very clear.
Okay. So next person, please. Okay, in that case, okay.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yes, we hear you.
Thank you. All right. Two things. One of which I have to go back to the same. I understand we apparently have a different opinion on process, but to me, the very basic question that is absolutely pivotal here is whether this is an appropriate or any expansion of a non-conforming. Obviously, we've covered that. You want to go to the town council first and still want to otherwise want to go ahead with this type of public hearing. So I'm going to throw out another area that's of concern to me. We live on Summer Breeze Lane, which is in the area pretty much directly across the marsh. And I'm concerned or want to ask questions about, we've traditionally been a fairly quiet beach here. The only commercial operation, if you will, well, other than the general store, which is hardly up to holding parties, but an area that has entertainment, hotel space, et cetera, dining, whatever, is of course the Tides. And there are occasionally weddings, receptions held at the Tides. I've seen some of us enjoy watching, from afar, the weddings that take place out on the beach there and then repair back to the Tides. I've not heard much in terms of a whole lot of, DJs and bands and stuff being held there. I understand from somebody that they are, in fact, there at times. So I'm turning back to the issue of what I would see as a very different use of this property. We've been around here. We've had our house here for over 20 years, actually stayed at the old Goose Rocks Inn or whatever it was called at times before our house was built. So I know what it felt like and acted like and what seemed to go on there. And as well as being now a full-time resident here for quite a number of years, this generally is a quiet location and a family-oriented location. Now, from what I've seen of the advertising that the applicant is already putting out there for the use of this and taking reservations for this on their own website, it seems as though this is going to be used in part as a destination for special events, including weddings. And my question, perhaps the applicant can shed some light on this. Are you looking at holding these events outside? Or are all weddings and special events going to take place inside the 88-seat restaurant with the windows closed? Or are we going, what kind of noise mitigation? Because I can guarantee you that noise travels on a quiet summer evening clear across that marsh.
Steve, you were Ryan, want to answer that for starters?
Make sure my mic was down so you could hear me. I'll have to check it. I honestly do not know. We've been dealing with the site and the use, but we will check into that and get a response back to you.
Yeah, just for information, what we have done on such approval of such things certainly is to limiting the times that things. In the finding of facts, there are conditions, and we always put in conditions about the time they're allowed to have things. The old project, the old place as it was used to have tents for weddings, I believe, but the idea is that we will have a number of conditions, and the if this gets approved, which obviously we're still way away from that, the KRC would have to abide by those conditions. They would agree to them in the process of this, and those would include such things as time events ending and such things, and the town has requirements in terms of the number of decibels of noise and such things also.
No. Okay, thank you for now.
Okay. All right, next one. Are we going to continue the we got somebody?
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, and thanks for your time, everybody. Yeah, so just on like the outdoor weddings, I looked through the construction file from like 1985 through the current, through many layers. I never saw any planning board approval for outdoor weddings, and yet I saw approvals, several times a year for tents for outdoor weddings, which I know the sound of which spread across the marsh, as Kate was just describing. So, they're already advertising for outdoor weddings. They're showing people dancing on the beach with great glamour. And I just would ask the board to really, like the prior application, like limit pesticides. What does that mean? Is there really any teeth to that? I know we were told we were going to limit pesticides and insecticides at the campground, but I don't see that there's any protocol or any procedure in the town to check on that. We put this into a little, make us feel good amendment to an approval, but there's no mechanism as far as I can find, and I've asked to see that we ever check on that. So I don't know that those outdoor weddings were ever allowed by the planning board. It was not in the original approval.
We don't deal with weddings. That's not anything to do with us particularly. The approval of a tent. Approval of a tent is a separate tent approval.
I know, but you allow a limited amount of parking. You require a certain amount of parking spaces, a certain amount of lot coverage, and all of a sudden a tent goes up and under 150 cars drive up into our community, and you just look the other way.
That sounds illegal. I don't know whether the police do something about that, but I mean the tent requirements are handled by code enforcement, are they not, Warner?
Yes. So we do issue tent permits, as temporary structures. And as you all know, there was a recent amendment that expanded the allowances of that. I think this is a bigger, broader conversation. This is something that affects multiple properties townwide. I think it's been a very common and long-standing practice for many of our hotels in town that have weddings on site. And only recently has it really been something that's been brought up in conversation during planning board applications regarding that. Again, I think it's been longstanding practice, in the community, and so I think that's a bigger, broader question regarding.
Right, but we have a new
weddings.
application tonight. We have a new application tonight, and they're telling us they want an 83 or 87 seat restaurant, which they never had before, and we see advertisements for large wedding venues here. So where are those weddings going to be? Are they going to be indoor? I saw a letter mentioned earlier from Mary Gickness, I think, asking that question. But I don't think Mr. Doe answered that question. He doesn't want to answer any questions unless the board asks him to answer those questions. So I don't see on the site plan any place for outdoor tents. I don't see any place for outside porta potties for those events. So where are those events going to be? Are they going to be inside or outside? Very simple question. I think Mr. Doe could answer that question. And if he can't, he shouldn't be presenting the plan until he can answer those questions.
I just let me interrupt here. I think Tom open this meeting with a call for civility, and I would call into question this conversation we're having right now. On that.
I'm sorry, but if the questions that are posed by the public are not answered, we deserve to have answers.
No argument.
And I think Mary Gickness raised a question. She happened to share it to me. She's a neighbor and she shared it with me. And at the beginning, it was raised by the board. And Mr. Doe said, he just kind of ignored it. I'm not going to answer these questions.
I think I posed a question to Steve along the point, Paul, and that isn't how I heard his answer. Excuse me. That isn't how I heard his answer. I've had a good number of dealings with Mr. Doe and with Mr. Austin. I haven't known them to behave in that fashion. I think what I heard was he will answer those questions, but wanted to hear the public input tonight. You're upset that he's not answering it in real time. He's not ad-libbing it. I hear that. I'm not sure that's a realistic expectation. I ask you to please be civil.
Yeah, I just got a copy of that 2 weeks ago. So I kind of hoped in real time we would have an answer. That's all.
Understand your hope.
Okay. Can we have another, do we have any more people raising hands? Okay.
Thank you
Jennifer,
all.
go ahead.
Thank you all for your time. Wow, I don't know Paul Hogan from Adam, and at the same time, I just had to respond. I did not hear any lacking in civility in what he was saying. So I just beg the planning board to listen with the softest part of their ears, as many of my teachers have told me. And I invite everyone to just think about what it is that we are truly about here in this town. And remember that we have been working on a new comprehensive plan, and that plan has a completely new vision for this town, a vision that has a transformational shift to ecotourism, something we have never embraced, nor do we even understand a lot of what that means. So I just want to invite everyone here on this call tonight and the planning board to realize we're in a wholly different territory. As the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust, with which I am very closely allied in my business, will say 2/3 of our town will be underwater, whether it's 20 years, 30 years. And so let us please use that vision, that level of perspective in which to meet these applications that are coming forward. Thank you so much to the planning board, to everyone here tonight. I just, it's incredible. This town, I love it, and I appreciate all of your time, and I will stop talking now, but I just wanted to say those last few words from a perspective of a citizen here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any more questions, or shall we continue the public hearing until the next meeting at this point? Oh. Jennifer still has her hand up, but that's, I think, a mistake. So.
I listened to what Jennifer had to say, and I certainly second all that she's saying. My frustration level is somewhat understanding this process, I guess. So 2 comments. That's one. Or whether all the planning board can do is a very narrow reading of the land use ordinance. And I admit I am not a land use attorney, other kind of attorney, but have not really delved into that, and certainly not to the extent that others have in this town. But it seems to me that there needs, I don't know quite where is the mechanism now then to protect what is important to the people who live in this town. And when I raised the question about noise, and by the way, I thought I somewhat agree with Paul that with all due respect to Mr. Doe, if somebody's advertising extensively about weddings and whatever, I thought they might at least have some understanding of what they're going to do and where they're going to hold. So
Kate, can I interrupt you for just a second and defend Steve? I'm sorry, but Steve Doe is representing the landscape architect company that put this proposal together. The person representing KRC is not here, unfortunately, and so Steve has to pose those questions to KRC directly.
Okay, well, I'm posing the question to him. I don't know the exact breakup of who's responsible for what in that, but he's there tonight, as is Ralph Austin. It is a question. This is a public hearing, one of the few chances we will have. I know it's going to be continued. So I think it's the fact that we sort of say, gosh, we can't, there's not an answer at hand. Okay, but put that aside. I do get a little bit of frustration about who is going to be looking at the slightly wider question of the major changes that are going to be made in this piece of property, how they affect life here at Goose Rocks Beach. And that's very specific. So with that, I will look forward to the next hearing. I'm glad we are continuing it to another time, and I'm very interested to hear the answer on what I think is a pivotal issue of the expansion or non-expansion of this non-conforming use. So with that, good night.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess I will take a motion to continue the public hearing to September 1st, which interestingly enough, I won't be here on September 1st. I'll be elsewhere, but that's the way things go, I guess. But
I think you planned that.
Oh yeah, it's been we have had that plan in for months. It's a weekend thing, or a midweek thing, which got delayed because of the pandemic and got rescheduled right into the middle of Delta. So I mean, it may get moved again.
Tom, will the response from our attorney be available on the website prior to that meeting, or even a week before that meeting?
I doubt it, but we have to get the response from her before we may have to delay the next public hearing for waiting for Amy. I don't know. What do you think, Werner?
Yeah, so I did send everything along to Amy. Typically speaking, you all like to have things 7 days prior to the meeting. Practically speaking, I don't know that that's going to be available for you 7 days prior. But I did send it, forward it on to her with that request, and I'll see what kind of a response I get. But
I'm hoping on it for that very reason, Werner. We opened this meeting with some criticism, and not invalid perhaps, but that the question should have been available earlier and should have been available for public scrutiny before this meeting, and here we are. I think we can foresee a similar situation coming up, and I wanted to at least put that out there for folks to consider whether or not we want to say as a condition of holding the next meeting, that the answers need to be available for review by all, including the board, a week before that meeting, or do we want to hold the meeting anyway, get more input like tonight on other issues, and just agree that we certainly wouldn't close the public meeting at that point?
I think Ed is right. You really need to have Amy's input before anything else. And you need to have it not only, but that the public has time to review it too. We made that rule for 7 days a long time ago, but it was in response to suddenly getting things 24 hours ahead of a meeting. And even the planning board didn't get to, all of the planning board didn't get to read it. So I think we ought to stick to that rule.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just...
Ralph has a question, I think, here.
Well, I was just going to say, you're continuing the public hearing. I think you need to set a date specific, but there's no problem setting it for the next meeting. And if because I agree, Amy's opinion needs to be at least a week before, so the board and the public and we have time to understand. And so if it's not here a week before September 1, as we've done with other things in the past, just continue it to the next meeting.
Right.
So that would be something that would be on the amendment on the agenda as deferred pending the receipt of the Amy stuff.
Yeah, well, I think, how we would identify, this application would just be, we'd identify it as a continued public hearing on the agenda. That's how it would show up. And then during that meeting, you all can have a discussion regarding what your next steps are. If we haven't received Amy's, if we haven't received her responses by then during that meeting, we certainly tell folks that we're going to continue it on to the next meeting, from there. Again, practically speaking, I think that's probably where we're going to be at. I don't anticipate, seeing an answer from her, within a week. But again, I did make that request.
So I think we've heard two different approaches. One is we could decide today that if Amy's response isn't back, we're going to defer the public meeting. Put out the agenda change. Don't ask everyone to dial in. Don't ask Steve and Ralph to show up. Or we could go ahead and open the public hearing, see if there's any other input, and if Amy's response hasn't been available, we will continue it further. Can we decide now to do the former and not the latter? Or do you
We've got other information we're expecting from Mr. Doe. I believe the response on the Acorn review.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think what will happen with that, similar to Amy's, is we'll provide a response through Werner. He'll send that to Acorn, and I'm sure there's going to be a turnaround time for them to respond. So it's probably going to be very similar to Amy's. That it may not be by September 1st that,
So, should we decide now that September 15th is the next meeting on this topic?
I don't think we can anticipate that.
Well, I don't know that it's it's an anticipation, but I do think you all as a board can make that decision, that instead of having this as an agenda item for September 1, you could choose to have this as an agenda item for your second meeting in September.
Yes.
I'd like to have it as a 1st of September, and the requirement for holding that meeting be that we receive both the Acorn information and the response from the attorney, and it goes on.
What we did.
Ed, what if that doesn't give people time to examine it? What if that information comes in the day before?
1 week before.
Must be a week.
What we've done in the past on contentious little issues of this sort is that when we get to the 7-day notice point of where we have to notice the meeting, we can actually change the notice afterwards. But the idea is if there's something really going to hold it up, I mean, Ralph can ask us to defer it another week. Because we've seen that where the public hearing just was listed and said, deferred to next meeting or something. At request of the applicant. But I mean, I really, if we don't have much new information, I don't really want to just say, hey, folks, we don't got much new information. We're going to continue it and let the people have to listen through us do the other things.
And to George's point, to have that new information a week in advance of the September 1st meeting.
Right.
Right.
Well,
I had a point.
An excellent one.
Yes.
So also just for the board's information, will be unavailable, next week. And so while we do have office staff that are, thanks, George.
All right, piling on now.
I just want to be clear that, that I'll be out of town and will not be checking emails.
And Lisa's no longer there, so
next week. So I just want to, put that out there that, while I do have on my out of office message, forwarding directions to folks, I'm not in control.
Take a week off.
I am tapped out next week. So
good. Good. Long year.
So can I be clear on what is going to happen with this now? Are we leaving it to the applicant to defer?
No.
Okay.
Well, again, I think
Chow's input isn't in the applicant's control. That's our side.
Okay.
Well, can we, 5 days prior, schedule it, then 5 days prior to the week, deferred at request of board. I've never seen those words written on a.
No, so that's not something that, so you're making a board decision outside of the confines of a meeting.
Board chairman, I don't know.
So, I think you have, I think you have two options. I think you can have a continued public hearing noticed at the next meeting. The applicant could, between now and then, request that it be deferred to the next meeting, but that would be at the applicant's request. Or you could just decide now to just set it for, do it on the 15th. And, I think at that point, you stand a better chance of meeting all the time, all the timelines.
So that way we'll probably be able to get the acorn at the same time.
Well, representative of the applicant is here. Does the applicant want to make that suggestion? That would be you, Ralph.
As a practical matter, I mean, stranger things have happened in life, but I sincerely doubt that Amy will have an opinion in 1 week because the next meeting is in 2 weeks from now, correct?
Yeah.
Right after Labor Day.
So, and I know.
Holiday.
And I know how engineers work, so
Thanks, Ralph.
we're not going to have, they're slower than attorneys. So as a practical matter, we're not going to have stuff by September 1 or by next week.
Why don't
A
we
week
just
before that, we won't.
Why don't we just say that we're going to move the next public hearing on this to the 15th and not mess around?
Yeah.
We do not oppose that. I just didn't want to suggest it.
I agree with that. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So moved.
Okay. Second.
Okay.
Okay, now let me go through the board, see if everybody's still here to vote. We have me, I'm in favor. Nina?
In favor.
Ed?
Yes, in favor.
Okay. John? In favor, and George is in favor. So let's defer. We will have the public hearing of this continued till the 15th. We'll still have the public hearing on Mr. Rizzo next time.
Correct. Yep.
Plus a couple other things that have come up. So I guess I just need a motion to adjourn.
I wanted to say one thing, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
As we still have a lot of the good citizens in this little town of 3,600 people on here, go on the town website, understand what it is the planning board does and does not do. If there are changes people want made in the town, this is not, we don't do that. It says planning board, we're not planning anything, man.
That's right.
We look at the ordinances and applications and subdivisions and we question things. But, you know, if you think that the character of the town is going to be solved in this meeting, this is not the right meeting.
Yeah, we don't know from eco-tourism, thank you. We wish we did, maybe. Maybe you'd like to go on an eco vacation right now.
So if you think it should be different, you need to get active and you need to do something in this little town, because this is the ordinances we have that have been passed over the years to try and protect what we think our town should look like. If you think that should be different, then you need to get involved. I'll get off my soapbox.
Okay. All right, you want to make a motion while you're there?
I'm going to make a motion. We adjourn this meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. Well, I'm in favor. Anybody else? All opposed? No. All in favor of adjourning. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you all.
And
Thank you.
thank you. And I will, Nina's in charge next week, next meeting.
I'm so glad you deferred that meeting.